You are listening to Supplement Source, the official podcast of the Council for Responsible Nutrition. And now your host, Jeff Ventura.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Supplement Source. I am your host, Jeff Ventura, the Vice President of Communications here at the Council for Responsible Nutrition. And I am delighted today to have on our show two folks from Kyowa Hakko, Danielle Citrolo, who is the VP of Scientific and Regulatory Affairs, and Katie Emerson, the Senior Manager of Scientific Affairs. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us, Jeff.
Let's start out with our first topic of the day, which is brain health and nootropics. I know, Danielle, you are definitely the person to talk to with regard to this particular subject. Let's start out with just talking about the past decade. What advancements in neuroscience have most influenced how we study nutritional support for cognition in healthy adults?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely have seen, I've been, with the company for 13 years and the science has advanced a lot. I remember when I first started, we had a study that looked at magnetic resonance spectroscopy, which is like brain imaging study. And it was like,
please don't make me pronounce that.
Yeah, it was very cutting edge. It's basically brain imaging that looks at phosphorus components and so on and so forth. And it has a scientific way of detecting. And it was so cutting edge. But now that is really something that is becoming more mainstream. More and more ingredients in the supplement space are able to conduct such studies. And they're getting better and better at the technology behind it, the validation of these studies, even other things like EEGs, and then just cognitive battery testing, whether we're looking at memory or whether we're looking at other types of executive functions. I remember struggling, a few years back trying to find good, validated, reproducible tests. But now there's actually quite a bit of great tests out there that have been also used in dietary ingredients and nutritional space, which is important because we're not in a drug space. We're testing healthy people. So I really see that there's been an explosion of tools, of validated good tools, and then the infancy of that technology has really expanded. And then just speaking generally on just cognition and healthy adults, when I started in this space, we still didn't know. And I'm a pharmacist, and it was all about like kind of treatment, right? Like dementia and, some of the more disease, it was all treatment. But, the science has evolved a lot in this space. And what we know is actually nutritional ingredients are more critical because it's really what we've learned is it's really about intervening with these healthy lifestyles because we're not successful in treatment later, right? So that's why our space becomes more important in cognition in healthy adults, really.
And the central ingredient that we're talking about when we're talking about this is citicoline, right?
Citicoline is the ingredient that I've been working with for many years, that I've learned all about. I'm not an expert. I'm actually a pharmacist, right? But I've become knowledgeable in this neuroscience space because we've done many, many studies using citicoline. One that I mentioned was that MRS technology where we were able to see the increases in phospholipids, which tell us and show us that the brain cell membranes are being turned over, which helps with like neuroplasticity and cell membrane repair, which is so important for neurons to function and for neurons to get their nutrition and the neurotransmitters to flow through. So that's my experience as I've learned. And then we've done a ton of cognitive battery tests, which I could talk about as well, through the years. And we've learned a lot about different tests that are out there. And so that's where my experience comes from with that ingredient.
Well, I'm 55. I think my neurons are turning into morons at this point, but I do appreciate the research. So with regard to citicoline, what's the connection with brain energy metabolism? Can you kind of walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think citicoline does set itself apart when it comes to brain energy metabolism. We think about kind of nootropics as being that stimulant. Citicoline, we've learned, is not really a stimulant, and it has a very different mechanism, which we've learned through some really cool science. It actually kind of shifts the bioenergetics in the brain. And more recently, and this is becoming big, omics, right? Transcriptomics and genomics is like a hot new, topic in nutritional space and in, even in the drug world as well. And we were able to conduct a study that's still not published, but I'll tell you that we did some transcriptomics, which tells us what genes citicoline is turning on, upregulating, downregulating, and how that impacts brain metabolism. And it's really cool and it's really exciting. And this research is basically telling us that there's many pathways in our neurons and brain to make ATP, but some are more effective and more bioenergetically favorable. So it's like we need less to make more ATP. And what we've learned is that citicoline is able to kind of turn on a pathway that is actually more efficient for the brain to produce ATP. So it's really cool. We're still trying to figure what it all means out, but there is an imaging study that also showed us that ATP was increased with citicoline in the brain. So we have two different types of studies that are really cool and showing there's a story here that we're trying to learn and understand. ATP is important because what we know is that if the brain doesn't have those basic energy requirements met, our neurons die. And that's not good.
Right. That's why I drink 6 cups of coffee in the morning, I think. How have clinical trial designs for nootropics evolved, though, to better measure, real world outcomes like focus, attention, mental clarity?
The tests that we've been able to kind of validate and make more reliable assessment tools for nutritional ingredients. And that's really what we look for when we're designing a study. We like to not only see this as a validated test and it's reliable, but we want to know that this test has been used with other nutritional ingredients and in healthy subjects. So that's really important in our space because we're not dealing with disease. So a test that's been validated in disease population may not be relevant in our population. And then, of course, what we're getting better at, some of the tests that are available now, you can look at them, you can see what they're doing, what types of testing, and how that applies to real world functions and life. And that becomes important when you're trying to do marketing and sales, right? There's a lot of different tests out there, but I do think we've gotten better at validating them in a diverse range of population, healthy, and then also we want those tests to be translatable into real world issues, problems, and solutions. Those are the things that we're looking at. And there are quite a bit of great new battery tests that are very good that are out there that we're using in our research and look to use in future research.
Let's just move on from the brain health to immune health now and talk to Katie a little bit about that. Glutathione. I've heard it described as the master antioxidant. Tell me about the role it plays with the immune system and how does it work with regard to antioxidants like vitamin C, for example?
Yeah, that's such a great question too, because glutathione for me was something very new coming into the industry. I'd always done a lot of research in the cognitive space. The way that I've learned it in putting it in like layman's terms is it's the CEO of the antioxidant world. Okay. It's like the commander in chief. It's working behind the scenes to keep our cells running smoothly. It's making sure the immune system is in top form. So I'm thinking of it as almost like the project manager for your body's detox and defense system. So it's going to be removing damaged molecules, recycling other antioxidants like vitamin C and E, and then making sure our white blood cells are just kind of primed and ready for action. So when I think of the immune system, that's a coordination of a lot of different cells, tissues, and processes which are designed to help protect us against harmful microbes and toxins. Lymphocytes, natural killer cells, macrophages, they're all so important for generating reactive oxygen species during any immune responses. But glutathione neutralizes this process, so it's going to actually slow down oxidative damage to these cells. And where vitamin C comes in is they actually work really well together. And this was something I had learned very recently too. And it's what's called the antioxidant network, where each one helps regenerate and maintain the other's activity. And I feel like most people just naturally know that vitamin C can help the body when you get sick. But what people don't realize is that when your glutathione levels are low, it can actually impair vitamin C recycling, which leads to lower overall antioxidant capacity, which is going to directly affect your immune system and not let you recover faster. So together, I feel like if you're feeling sick, take them together in a combination and get more bang for your buck because they work better together than separately.
Wow, that's fascinating. Tell me about the controversy around the oral absorption of this ingredient. What does the latest science say, and how is your company's clinical research addressing this issue?
That is another issue that I constantly hear in the scientific community, is that the old claim was basically oral glutathione is completely degraded and useless and it doesn't get absorbed in the bloodstream. So why take it in oral form? You have to take it in IV. Studies are very expensive, but for the companies that actually take the time to address these concerns and find valuable solutions for myths like this out in the community, it's nice, and it's good to be able to say, hey, there is a study where saturated glutathione is combating this myth, where it's like a 3 and a 6 month study. It's randomized, double blind, placebo controlled. So it's the gold standard human trial. And it did find that, with daily oral glutathione supplementation, it can actually increase body stores of glutathione in multiple compartments throughout the body, not just one. So I think there were stores in the erythrocytes, whole plasma, and even buccal cells, which are the inner lining cells of our cheeks, which to me is such a fascinating thing because, and I use this example, so anyone who ever has heard me talk will be like, oh my gosh, she's going to use it again. But I have kids and we go to the grocery store and we use the wipes, but sometimes you don't get every inch of it. And when you touch the shopping cart, if here in Florida, Publix, you get a free cookie. My kids go and they eat the cookie, so their hands are directly in their mouth. So to think that there's a possibility that by taking an oral supplement like glutathione to boost your immunity, maybe in the buccal cell lining of your mouth might be like a first line defense. It's kind of a cool concept to think about.
I'm pretty sure at my age, if I touched a shopping cart and then touched my fingers to my mouth, I would immediately die.
Kids are so resilient. It's just not even fair.
They really are. Yeah. I'm around young kids for more than 10 minutes and I get a
Start
flu.
Sneezing.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
Widely recognized as the body's master antioxidant, as you described, the CEO, right? Reducing oxidative stress to support overall health. Got it. But what about athletes and active individuals? Tell me a little bit about the special role that it can play there.
It's interesting to think about just like making sure that we're studying in healthy populations. But when you look at like competitive athletes and active individuals, so I should mention that I'm working on my PhD in exercise science and human performance. So this is like a passion of mine, is to seeing how these individuals are pushing their bodies to the absolute limits every day. They rarely take rest and recovery days, although they should. So to understand how something that is being tested in a normal, healthy population that may be sedentary or just active, right? How is this going to help them, especially when it comes to those daily training routines that are putting a lot of physical demand on their bodies, that's causing a lot of stress? Well, glutathione has benefits that go well beyond, what we just talked about, being an antioxidant and immune support. When it comes to specific exercise recovery, performance measures, there's things that glutathione can do that can actually help. So it helps to neutralize free radicals that build up in our system, and it also helps to protect muscle cell membranes, mitochondria, and enzymes from oxidative damage. So while I am constantly pushing and promoting exercise, daily exercise is so important, or even just physical movement is so important, when you talk about an athlete or even someone that goes to like Orange Theory or Peloton, right? You don't have to be a competitive athlete. This is putting enormous amount of stress on your body that causes a buildup of free radical damage. And so that is going to kind of wreak havoc on your body, and it's really going to make it difficult for you to recover and have better performance the next day. So what's unique about glutathione when you pair it with something like a vasodilator that's going to enhance nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide, I should mention, is also, it's a free radical. It's going to widen the blood vessels, but it also helps to improve oxygen and nutrient delivery to working muscles. This is something every athlete or active individual wants and needs to get through a successful workout or competition. But glutathione, being that antioxidant, it actually helps to stabilize that NO molecule, which is going to allow for it to remain more active in the bloodstream longer. And this just means that the individual may see better blood flow, better performance, and maybe even more efficient recovery after their exercise. So if you are an active individual and you're thinking you're not recovering faster, you typically take a vasodilator like L-citrulline or L-arginine. Think about pairing it with glutathione because it may actually help with your workout in general and then maybe even your recovery as well.
Well, I wish this discussion was endless, but unfortunately we do have an end to our little episode here. But I want to thank both of you so much for coming on Supplement Source. Danielle Citrolo and Katie Emerson, please come back and visit us again soon. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. We'd love to come back.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.